A reading from the Gospel of Matthew. Then he left the crowds and went into the house. And his disciples approached him, saying, "Explain to us the parable of the weeds of the field." He answered, "The one who sows the good seed is the Son of Man. The field is the world, and the good seed are the children of the kingdom. The weeds are the children of the evil one, and the enemy who sowed them is the devil. The harvest is the end of the age, and the reapers are angels. Just as the weeds are collected and burned up with fire, so will it be at the end of the age. The Son of Man will send his angels, and they will collect out of his kingdom all causes of sin and all evildoers, and they will throw them into the furnace of fire, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. Then the righteous will shine like the sun in the kingdom of their Father. Let anyone with ears listen." We have the advantage of being invited into this house, it seems, with the disciples, who Jesus gives some insight on this challenging parable of the wheat and the weeds, or the wheat and the tares. This is toward the end of the parable where Jesus gives his explanation and invites us in for some insight. It's still a very challenging parable though, isn't it? The wheat and the weeds. I learned a little bit about weeds. Now, I have no gardening skills whatsoever or farming, so I had to do some research. And it turns out that weeds are kind of arbitrarily decided. You could be a plant in one state and a weed in another, a noxious weed in another. The baby breath, for example, the little tiny flowers that look like little daisies that adorn roses and give quite a beautiful layout, a spray. In one state, in California, they're weeds. In other states, they're noxious weeds. And in some, they're flowers. So this arbitrariness is quite interesting. I like, therefore, Ralph Waldo Emerson's description of weeds. He says, "Weeds are plants whose virtues have not yet been recognized or discovered." So one of the takeaways for this parable right away is not to make quick judgments on others. Rather, we need to look at our own lives and see at times, are we operating as a wheat or a weed? Are we getting in the way? Before we jump to others, deciding who's good or who's bad, the sower is the one who gets to make this judgment at the end, not us. This is God's work to make such distinctions. When I first read this, I couldn't help but think of an experienced teacher in a classroom. I was a school social worker for many years, and I love to see an experienced teacher organize her classroom. She may have gotten some students whom other teachers tried to warn her that they were tough students, they were challenging, they were gonna rock the boat, they were gonna make discipline a challenge in her academic program. But an experienced teacher knows how to let all the students grow together and maximize it so that all students could succeed in the end. I love watching that process. However, I do want to note, and maybe this is my read, it's not in the parable, but I would think that there are some weeds that you have to deal with right away. I don't think the parable says that we should be silent and just wait till by and by for evil to reign and wreak havoc. I think that we are never to be silent or on the sidelines when that is happening. I think the sower would recommend that we deal with that immediately. But the weeds in this parable are the weeds where it's kind of hard to distinguish, is this a wheat or this is weed? So let it grow and let God make that distinction at the end. After all, Judas Iscariot looked like wheat, and at the end, he turned out to be a weed. And St. Paul was a weed, and in the end, he turned out to be wheat. So let us be careful in judging. I know I myself could be messy one minute and a blessing another. Hopefully, I'm more blessing more often than not. But we all have this within us. Let us be careful in making our judgments and let God decide that we are the wheat. And as it says, the righteous will shine like the sun. Oh, how I want to be in that number of wheat. Amen.